Greetings and salutations, malefactors and YouTubers. Well, today is the day right before the ride, and let's see what we have left to do. So, we still have roughly half of a motorcycle. Today's big goal is to get it riding ready. I got my clutch packs in, I got my new springs, got my gaskets. I mean, everything's ready to go here when I'm ready to put it back together. So today will be basically rebuilding the engine. I think we can do that. And I finally figured out where to secure this guy, thanks to some pictures on Thumper Talk. So we'll be getting the new clutch plates in, new springs, new oil filter, new gasket, put all that back together, slap the outside case on, fill it full of oil and coolant, reattach the subframe, get some plastics. Yesterday I already put on the new non-broken throttle tube, some Pro Taper pillow grips because, well, I like them and they're cheap. Got the front brakes going, and pretty much from here, and got a set of hand guards over there as well, but I'm going to focus on getting the usability on this first. And then maybe when I get back here a little bit later, you guys can see the terrible wiring jobs I do. But if I don't manage to accomplish this today, no biggie. I mean, there's always other rides, but I would like to go ahead and do a repair this scale and get it done. And then hopefully you guys can see me firing this thing up here in a bit. I'm gonna gather some more of my tools and parts and come back here when I start doing something interesting. Well, we're back. We're about to put in a clutch pack on this bike. And you're gonna wonder a couple things. How do I know when I need to replace my basket and my inner hub? So you notice that there's these little areas where you see the plates having a bit of groove on here. Whenever these are deep enough to basically hang up the side of a plate is when you replace your hub. So to my pleasant surprise, this looks like a mostly brand new clutch hub. This probably has less than 10 hours on it. And the inner hub barely has any wear as well. So you see kind of where you have these indentations. If you can rub it with a finger and feel like a large area of, like, I guess, resistance, that's when you should replace it. And just a word of the wise, a lot of the aftermarket baskets like Henson and Pro X and such require that you drill out the there's a set of metal rivets on the back of this to attach your primary gear. You got to drill those out and then attach them with the kit that they specify for the motorcycle. So right now I'm just cleaning out all of the extra metallic schmutz that's in here. But no, funny enough, this thing's actually in good shape. And one thing that I've noticed that Yamaha does factory with their clutch basket that Suzuki doesn't, and most folks will do as an aftermarket deal for an RM125 to not have a clutch that hangs so much, is you see these little holes right here? That allows the oil to get between the clutch plates quicker so you have less drag on the clutch. It's actually kind of a smart design. So a lot of folks on the, if you read the forums a lot, will tell you to drill holes like that in your basket. I never did, just because I was kind of concerned about how that would function. But Yamaha apparently comes with its stock. So I have everything nice and torn apart. I'm about to clean this out, get it ready for the brand new gasket. The other thing is, you ask yourself, well, how does he remember how all these plates go? Well, I pull out the cover and I leave the plates in the order in which they were received, and then I just basically place the new plates in the same order. Now on some bikes like a CRF 250L or any bike that has what's called a judder spring attached, your first plate's actually going to be this like a small metal plate, and it's kind of like a imitation slipper clutch. So these have sat in oil overnight. You can look at the difference between I gotta make sure I don't knock these out of order because I'm really forgetful and I really don't want to forget how these go. So these are the difference between your test plates and your, I'm guessing, OEM plates. And these have about another 1/16 of an inch of material on them. So when you're done installing this, you are going to have to do a large adjustment on the clutch. That just is what it is. And it appears these plates are bi-directional, so not an issue. So how you put them in is, once you basically figure out how the bottom one, the top one is there, it's friction. On this bike, it's friction, steel, all the way out. And you should be ended with a friction plate on the outside. We'll double check when I get this mostly put together. So doing this job is kind of a goopy mess. And really, there's no service interval I recommend on these baskets and everything. Whenever your clutch starts to really fade on the regular basis between oil changes or after oil changes is when you should pull this apart and check the condition of your clutch plates and check the condition of your baskets. Now, a good basket will last probably about 5 sets of clutches, but that's really just something you have to, something you kind of have to see for yourself. So we're just feeding these on. Come on. And yeah, it doesn't matter if you make a little bit of a mess. This is all brand new fresh oil. And the big reason you want to oil these before you put them in is so the cork material in it swells up and gets ready to be used. If you put them in dry, you're going to be a very unhappy camper because your clutch is just basically not going to work very well, if at all. Kind of reminds me back when I was a kid. Dad was in motorcycle clubs, air quotations, and they used to have weekends where they'd go out and do rides and events. They'd do a slow race, and basically it was as slow as you can go, kind of like trials but on like a 1,000-pound Harley. As slow as you can go in a straight line without putting a foot down. You lose points for putting a foot down. And I got to watch him do this a lot as a kid. Every time he'd do a slow race on his Harley or his Yamaha 920, we'd come back the next weekend and sit there in the apartment and watch him just redo his clutches because they'd be completely burnt up. So you notice like the difference in the friction plates. Now these are your steels. What you look for in worn out steels is basically they'll start to have a bluish hue, or all the dimples will be worn off of them. And if you have a micrometer, you can measure thickness, but I usually just do it by visual. My rule of thumb is for every other set of frictions, go ahead and grab steels. That way you're not running the risk of having any issues later on. I'm kind of of the mind a little bit of extra money to get some peace of mind isn't exactly a bad thing. And these clutch packs are only $50-something. I mean, it's not like you're making a huge investment on something that'll increase the performance of your clutch. So now that I've got my clutch plates in, dump all my old ones off the hub and get ready to toss all this in the trash. Clean off any excess metallic oil or stuff from the ground and slap it back together. On some bikes you'll notice they have like a key or like some sort of like deal that feeds into there that you have to put. It's like a actuator for your clutch arm. Just something you're probably gonna have to bear in mind. A lot of bikes where they have the clutch arm on the clutch side case itself. Not every bike does that. So now we're going to fetch a gasket And yeah, you can use gasket maker. I'm not a big fan of it. I'd rather just buy the gaskets. But if you do end up damaging a gasket, when you're doing work like this, make sure you use the ultra black, which is the oil resistant gasket maker. Any of the other RTV sealants are going to come off in pieces in your engine. You're going to have all sorts of little ports and stuff plugged by red RTV. When you're doing this kind of work, use the item that's approved for the use. Then fish us a new gasket out. And actually, I kind of rubbed some of this down with a blue Jawbo sponge. I guess is the best way to put it. Got most of the schmutz off of here. Honestly, it wasn't that bad of stuff. It's just a little bit of case dirbus. I didn't want to do any more than that. Sometimes folks will say, oh, you can sand these bits down. I don't recommend it, because if you pull anything outside of spec on these, by sanding it down, you're never going to get a good seal on it again. Now, other people will also recommend that you put a little bit of RTV to hold this in place, but you have all these key pins on here to kind of hold it in place as you're putting it back on. That's one super intelligent design of these bikes. All right, feed the case back on. Come on, fella. The hardest part on this one seems to be the Kickstarter side. And no, not the funding side, the ah, goodness. Come on, stop trying to come off of here. Oh. Usually don't like to jam it on like that, but I kind of wouldn't give him much of a choice. Yeah, it looks like our gasket's pretty much where it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's all fitting there. Feel for any sort of lip on the bottom. And then from here, you figure out what your tightness for your case bolt is. It's 7 foot-pounds. So we'll start stuffing case bolts back in here little by little. Now, funny enough, this outer case, all of the case bolts are roughly the same. I'm going to do something a little strange with these clutch bolts. I can't remember the torque specification, but I'm going to pull it up before I put that all back together. But oddly enough, you've noticed I have something powered, which is something you don't normally see me do while working on a bike. Well, funny enough, putting back together clutch plates, I actually prefer to use a Ryobi because it helps you get the bolts back in while you're fighting the springs. Yeah, that gasket is... the gasket is in there nice and perfect. Do. Alright, we can share. So we've got our counter bolts. I mean, you tighten these, tighten them kind of like you're doing a wheel, crisscross pattern. Oh yeah, my bolt's in the way there. Clean up our hands. Oh yeah, it's my first time tearing apart a Yamaha engine. Kind of cinch that one down. Alright, fella. Feeling a little odd about that one right there. Thinking maybe there's supposed to be some sort of washer there. I'll back this back out a smidge. And if that's the case, no biggie. I'd figure they'd have like a copper crush or something on this. I'll look that up. That's the downside about tearing these things apart days apart. Alrighty, so what I'm also going to look up is the torque specification for our clutch bolts here. And normally I have a service manual when I start tearing apart bikes, but unfortunately I don't have a service manual for this yet. There was one that was downloadable online, but it's 1,000 pages and I really don't have that much printer paper at the house. So, take a little bit of time. I'm going to figure out the torque specification for this and figure out if that needs a crush washer. I've got a whole bag of spare crush washers that I got for this bike. And I already know this torque specification for every single one of these case bolts is 7 foot-pounds. Now, the reason you see the Ryobi out here is this is within accuracy of 1 foot-pound. So what I end up doing when I'm doing like a clutch case, normally it's 14 foot-pounds. I'm gonna set it there initially, but look it up, and I just drive it in nice and slow, get it finger fed about a quarter of the way in, then just cinch it down. So we're gonna take a little moment to pause and take an introspective look at our torque tables and see what we're looking at. Alrighty, so I got all my torque values and stuff and figured out where all of my grommets and goodies and all that stuff goes. And past there, pretty much. I'm not going to be recording much more of this process until we do the after shot, because I think it'd just be, I think it's kind of nifty to see the after effect, really. So we're going to go ahead and speed through the rest of this. Here in a little bit. I grab my inch-pound torque wrench. And I'll probably be doing a quick review on these hand guards as far as installation goes, and maybe even run them into a tree or two tomorrow, if I go tomorrow. See what's going on. Oh goodness, butterfingers. Alright, so yeah, an inch-pound torque wrench. If you need to do foot-pounds, it's 12 times the value. 84 inch-pounds. Do. So at 80, 84 inch-pounds. So it's actually feeling pretty tight on here. I'm getting a little nervous. Alright, come on man, let's get to the 84 inch-pounds. That's about as tight as I'm willing to get it. Or crank this bad boy down to 70 inch-pounds and see if it pops. Alright, so I'm going to tighten it right at 80. Forgive my caution, but I'd rather be right at or slightly low than just blasting this thing to bits. Alright, so this is 5.8 foot-pounds, so we're going to kick this thing down to 6. And you get to see the beauty of using the Ryobi for this here in a second. So one thing that's a little hard about putting these springs back in is that at the same time that you're drilling, you've got to be pushing. It's kind of a pain. Alright, so we got the old springs. Actually, old springs are still pretty much in spec. You look for any sort of damage. I'm gonna try some heavy duty springs. I haven't used heavy duty springs in ages. Okay, apparently you get a bonus spring. Oh, whatever. And you want to tighten these in a crisscross pattern as you throw them on the ground. And before you even think about using the Ryobi, put them in part of the way. Never just start with power assist. The reason you want to go a little bit further in, about a quarter of the way when you're doing these, is also these springs are against the tension of the threads the whole time. So you want to get a little meat in there too. I've actually never been a fan of heavy duty clutch springs. I like a super light pull because I trail ride. So if I don't like these clutch springs, I'll peel this thing right back off and toss these springs out. Put the factory ones back on. But everyone else rants and raves about how great heavy duty clutch springs are. I owe it to myself to give it a shot. So we got these a quarter of the way in. And when it starts clicking like that and doesn't go anymore, let you know it's in. And you always do it in a star pattern like you're putting on a wheel. So now we reverse the pattern. And that's all there is to it. And funny enough, I could check it against the calibration of this tool. So if I don't have the adapter yet, I actually ordered the adapter so I can do my stupid spark plug with this. So I don't have a way to check this at 5 foot-pounds because my torque wrench here drops only down to 10, and the other one I've got only drops down to 15. So we're just gonna make do. Alrighty, So pretty much the rest of this is not going to be a very exciting watch. I'm going to go ahead and just start doing all of the general maintenance and put together on this, and show you guys kind of more so the end product. We will cut back in when I start working on the wiring, and that should be pretty much the last tale of intrigue on this, getting the wiring going, and then the after. Well, see you folks back here in about an hour. Well, unfortunately I think I ran out of a little bit of daylight, so I might be missing my ride tomorrow. I've got probably another 2-3 hours of work left on this bike. I noticed that my subframe tab back there is bent a little bit, so I might try and bend it back out and get everything else together. But we've got the engine together. It's ready for oil, it's ready for coolant. Just got to get the plastics and everything on. I found out that the newer WR400F fenders don't fit this bike, so I'm probably going to send this back and grab me a Poly Sport. I just don't like the original style of fender that comes with this bike. But yeah, needs still a little bit of love, but it's nearly there. But I'm not gonna rush something out or try and work in the dark on something that I've put a lot of time and money and effort into. So I'm gonna get the last couple bolts I have on here sewed up and get this thing ready for the garage and continue working tomorrow. Now I'll catch the next ride. But I tell you what, this has been actually somewhat of a fun experience, regardless of all the setbacks. So we'll get a couple more parts on order and get this bad boy polished the way it needs to, and well, hopefully I can get you guys a proper after. Well, in the meantime, thanks for hanging in there. See you guys soon. Discovered a little extra bonus about this bike. This subframe's bent all to hell. Just kind of came to the realization that trying to fit on the side panels, this thing's probably about 1 inch out of true downward and 1.5 inches out of true on the other side. So we're gonna see what a new subframe for this thing costs. Or I can try and straighten it, but I don't know, maybe I can manage to do that. We shall see. So yeah, it wasn't gonna be coming back together tomorrow anyway. Well, have a good one.